if you dissociate as a child, if you have a lot of traumatic experiences, a lot of people are like, I don't have any memories, which also can be really challenging when people go into like subconscious reprogramming, because it's like, when do you remember the first time feeling that? It's like, well, I don't know, Sharon, I don't have any memories. I am a like somatic embodiment facilitator, teacher, coach. Everything I do is based in nervous system regulation. You know, everything that we talk about in the spiritual world, getting connected to your intuition, right? Being able to trust yourself, being able to surrender, all of that actually comes from being able to be embodied and be able to have a regulated nervous system in order to be connected to yourself in that way, and also be connected to spirit. So take a lot of spirituality and bring it into the 3D, and yeah, it's been such a beautiful journey.
Hey, I'm Taylor Davis. Welcome to Wildly Satisfied. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome everybody. I am so excited for this series. I feel like I'm so excited all the time because I get to have great conversations. I'm so excited for this series with Rachel Gibler. We are going to be talking about feminine leadership, nervous system navigation, and somatic practices. And so I'm excited for Rachel to dive into everything. I've been so inspired by her story and everything that she's done, and her podcast is absolutely amazing. It's called It's Fucking Spiritual, which is totally my vibe because I love saying fucking all the time, or fuck-based words. And so we're going to dive a little bit into the new version of feminine leadership and what we like that to be, where the body leads. And I think that's a beautiful thing to talk about. So I'm gonna, without further ado, we're gonna dive right in.
Great.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad that you actually said yes, and we could have this amazing conversation because you're so inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
So many people. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I would love for you to introduce yourself for listeners who maybe haven't heard of you before or haven't listened to your podcast.
Great, sure. So, hi, my name is Rachel Gibler. I'm like, where do I look?
Right there. You can talk to me.
Okay. All right. I'll talk to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so I am a like somatic embodiment facilitator, teacher, coach. Everything I do is based in nervous system regulation, and I've had quite the journey to get where I am in business now. I host retreats. I host online groups for feminine embodiment and somatic work, because it's really been the thing that has absolutely changed my life. And I started business really studying like manifestation and spirituality through the lens of quantum physics and neuroscience. And that was kind of how I originally started teaching. And then the further and further along I got in my journey, the more I realized that I was living so much from my head and not in my body. And so that's been quite the journey for me, integrating those two things over the last few years. And I talk a lot about it on my podcast, It's Fucking Spiritual, where we take a lot of very spiritual, esoteric, woo-woo concepts, break them down, make them real, raw, and relatable for people in a way that they can actually apply to their life. And this most recent season 2 has been all about embodiment and somatic work and nervous system work, and how do we actually become the most embodied version of ourselves. And everything that we talk about in the spiritual world, getting connected to your intuition, right? Being able to trust yourself, being able to surrender, all of that actually comes from being able to be embodied and be able to have a regulated nervous system in order to be connected to yourself in that way, and also be connected to spirit. So take a lot of spirituality and bring it into the 3D. And it's been such a beautiful journey.
I love seeing that because I know that, how we met at it's Austin. You meet so many people just at like random parties and everything. And when I met you, you were in the middle of a pause, and you were in the middle of do you want me to?
I'm like, and I'm spilling my coffee.
Easy,
right? First 5 minutes, I'm fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. But no, we met in the middle of a party, and I know that you were in the middle of, I believe, pausing. When
I was in 3 months of isolation at the time, and I think I was just coming out of isolation. It was like where I was first coming back out into the world, but I wasn't working yet, which I can tell the whole story. I can go into it.
Yeah, go for it. I would love to, because I think when I met you, I was very inspired because you were like, I have this business, and I know you had the podcast, and then you were like, I'm going to take some time off. And often we see that a lot, where it's like some entrepreneurs that I've worked with, they're like, I just burned everything down and I started over, or they're like, no, I just disappeared. Yeah. Or some people are like, oh my God, I want to do that, but I don't know how to create safety in my body to be able to just step away for 3 months. And so I would love for you to share that story.
Yeah, totally. So I'll give a little bit of background of how I got there first, so people have some context. So I've been an entrepreneur now for 7 years, and I would say, just thinking back into my story and everything that happened that even got me into this work, I've lived dysregulated most of my life. And I had some very traumatic things happen to me in the later teenage years in my life. My father died when I was 16 years old, and that set me off on a trajectory of being completely out of my body, completely dissociated, because it was too painful to live in my body in the moment and experience the emotions that I was experiencing. So that led me, at the time I wasn't conscious, quote unquote. I wasn't doing the work. I didn't even know this work existed. I would have considered myself atheist. I was a partier, when I was 18 to 23. So I had like an 8-year downward spiral after he passed, that was just riddled with drug and alcohol abuse and tumultuous relationships and really escaping the present moment, and living chronically dysregulated. And when I was 23, I knew I had to change my life, and I was in a freak accident, and I had this like moment of clarity that was like, if you use this time, ironically, it's 3 months. So something I will say is, for everybody listening to this, we all have patterns and cycles in our life.
Yeah.
And so if you become the observer of your life, you will notice patterns over and over. And so for me, I've had multiple times of 3 months of isolation. And so this was my first one. And I was in a freak accident. It forced me to take 3 months medical leave from my corporate job. I was burning the candle at both ends. I, again, was very disembodied, wouldn't have used that language at the time, but had this awakening that was like, you need to change your life, and you're going to use these 3 months in bed as your healing to do it. And that's when I found self-development. That's when I found spirituality. And that's really how I started to crawl myself out of a hole. Now, what I'll say about someone that has any addictive tendencies in any way, which I'll say most of us do, we all do, right? Yeah. Even if you're not an addict to drugs and alcohol, you can be to your phone. You can be addicted. Most of us are addicted to certain emotions, right? And certain patternings in our lives. So, what we don't feel will show up in our lives in all different ways, right? What we don't feel, we don't heal. So for me, I got into this work, but I displaced my, partying and that level of dissociation for overworking and becoming an entrepreneur and putting all of that energy into trying to build a business.
I feel this so much. Yeah. I had a situation where I lost my grandmother, and she was like my full sense of safety. And I was in the middle of a toxic job in corporate, 9 to 5. And I was like, cool, I'm not going to feel this. I'm just going to work 60 hours a week for 2 years and drown myself in wine every night. So I feel this.
Yes. When we all have some version of that, right? Of like, before we get into this work, it's like that's the way that most of the world copes with life, right? And most people don't even know that there's another way to live. And I think for most of your listeners, especially if they're business owners or entrepreneurs or anybody listening to this, you've gotten to a certain point in your journey of like understanding, okay, I create my reality. I want to change my life in some way. I can, we've expanded our consciousness enough to know like I can create money, and look, when I can create value. And what I also see inside of this industry is that, so many of us take displaced addiction or displaced dysregulation and just move it into a different, putting our attention on something different, but it's landing in the body the same exact way.
Yeah.
And so I actually owned brick and mortar. My first, experience of entrepreneurship was owning brick and mortar salons. And at the time I was also like just learning a lot about online business, and I slowly started to build my business, and then launched a podcast. The podcast grew very quickly. And when that took off, I sold my first 2 companies. And then I've been doing podcasting and coaching full time for about 3 years now.
And your in person, your brick and mortar, was that a lash company? Okay, I was like, I swear that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, I don't talk about it a lot anymore, but originally, anybody that's been following my journey for the past 6 years, which is when I started documenting on Instagram, anybody that's OG remembers, because I was documenting my journey from corporate to entrepreneurship and opening these salons, which I ended up opening 2. Obviously, we know COVID hit. That was a whole situation. Luckily, they stayed afloat, but it was a journey. Yeah. But throughout that entire time, I was living very dysregulated. So I was doing everything they say not to do. I was pulling all-nighters. I was drinking an insane amount of coffee. I wasn't sleeping. I was overworking and then crashing and just not supporting my body, not supporting my nervous system at all. And also had so much that I hadn't let myself feel or process from the many, many, many years of living dysregulated and the things that I had gone through. And it served me at the time. I realized, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, when I got into this work and I realized, oh my gosh, I can manifest what I want. And, vision board and future script and affirmations and everything gets to flow and all of that, right?
We love it.
Yeah, we love it. And
yes.
And that is very surface level fluff, which isn't wrong. Mm-hmm. It's true. It's just not the whole picture.
Yeah.
And so I got this idea that once I check all the things on the vision board, then I'm going to feel better. It's going to make me happy. Once I, have a seat at the cool kids table, or once I make X amount of dollars per month, or all of those things. And so I worked to do those things. And I would check off the box and then the bar would move.
Oh yeah.
And it was first it was 10K months, then it was 20K months, then it was 50K months. And it was it was 100K on my podcast, and it was 500K, and it didn't matter. I would celebrate for 48 hours, then the bar would immediately move. I'd go into a depression because it didn't feel how I thought it would feel, and then the cycle would continue. Same thing with the house I wanted. Same thing with all of the stuff that I was and then I realized, this was about 2 years ago, I had a huge launch. My podcast was crushing it, all the things. And I was sitting in the middle of the vision board reality that I so badly wanted. And I was like, I don't feel any different. And enter even more just feeling more depressed, because I'm I know I should be grateful for all of this, but why this isn't the key. This isn't the ticket to actually what I'm looking for, which had me dive into nervous system, somatic work, realizing, it's because I'm trying to put a Band-Aid on something that I haven't felt.
It reminds me of, so Jenna Kennedy came and recorded also during
oh my gosh,
series.
I love her.
She's amazing.
That's the group chat. She just had her baby.
Oh yeah, she had her baby.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if I was supposed to say that yesterday.
This will be a couple months from now. So
okay, great. Well, she had her baby yesterday. I mean, that's when I was I just got 59 text messages right before we were sitting here, and I was it's a group chat. It was for Jenna's.
Oh my god.
Yeah. No, she's a dear sister of mine. I love her.
Literally. No, I know. And we've been hanging out recently, a couple times, and I was oh my god, can we please talk about your journey? Because she was at the height of everything.
Yeah.
And she had all the things that when you get in the coaching industry and in the spiritual industry, it's this is everything that will make you feel amazing.
Yeah.
And she's I felt the worst I've ever felt.
Literally.
And I resonate with that so much, because part of me, when I have conversations with a lot of feminine entrepreneurs, they're I'm still not feeling the way that I want to feel, but I'm doing all the things that I'm told. And I'm yeah, it's because we're operating in a business model that's not ours.
Right.
In a way that doesn't feel right for us. Mm-hmm. And I'm it's not, I don't like using right and wrong, but the feeling in your body is really what matters. Mm-hmm. And I love that we're talking about that. So please continue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, I love her so much. And her and I have bonded so much on this. And
beautiful.
Yeah. Just our journeys are so parallel in so many ways, which is just amazing. And it's the story of so many women in business, right? And so it's we checked the boxes, we did the things that we thought were going to make us feel happy, successful, aligned, enter whatever you thought you were going to feel here, right? And it's not the key, it's not the ticket. And so so I realized that a couple of years ago, and it really led me down a path of starting to study the nervous system, starting to understand that I'd been living chronically dysregulated for many years, starting to understand that we all have different addictions and our just body is addicted to certain chemicals and processes and emotions, or is constantly looking for that dopamine hit and is constantly looking for the next high, right? That's what the body's looking for. And so I started really getting into nervous system, starting getting into somatic work, and realized that I had been living in my head my entire life. And it's well, what does that even mean, right? It's I'm talking about the story. I'm in the process of why. I'm trying to figure it out.
That phrase so much comes up. I'm still figuring something out. Mm-hmm. I'm figuring it out. I'm trying to do this.
Yes.
I'm thinking about this.
Yeah.
And I'm cool. But if you're not doing it, you're not in your body, you're actually in your head over. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just hitting. I love this.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. And you were saying that you're on your big journey of surrender right now.
Yeah.
And surrender is walking the feminine path. And it's also, we can't surrender if our body feels unsafe. So we have to have that be the foundation for everything. And so basically what I realized is that most people, and in our culture and society, we live from a top-down approach, which is basically in the mind, right? Everybody's trying to figure it out. It's like this masculine hustle, right? And even like in the self-development, manifestation, coaching, all of these industries, it's like the overwhelming piece, and I think this is shifting and changing, right? As more people start to understand somatic work and nervous system regulation, but it's still fringe. Like if you look at the rest of the world, most people are still on the whole like, write out your limiting beliefs, shift your limiting beliefs, write out your affirmations, journal about it. And like, it's great, but it's only 50% of the puzzle. And that's a very top-down approach, meaning it starts in the mind and then it's meant to land in the body.
Yeah.
But instead, how do we enter through a bottom-up approach, which is going into the body, starting to feel and process what's there in the body, let that release, and then move from there. And so we're not going from the mind, we're entering through the body. And so I started to do that work, and that work requires slowness. It requires surrender. It requires literally like allowing yourself this space to like not have to figure it out or to do or to like be in the next goal, which is like what we're so trained to do.
Yeah.
It has to let go of every timeline, let go of everything, and start to literally get acquainted with my body. And so I did that work for a while and realized that I was trying to do this work, but I did 5 retreats in 6 months. And, I was still running a program, and I was doing a podcast, and like, I just realized those two things in that moment for me were at odds with each other. And I had a lot of different things happen in my life, personally at that time. This was about 1.5 years ago. And I just realized like, oh, I need to go really, really deep into my own journey, because for me, it's so important, especially as leaders and anybody listening to this, that we walk the walk of the path that we speak on, right? So that we're speaking from an embodied place. Yeah. And yes, we can all be human. Yes, we can all make mistakes. Like we all have our like human experience, and we're all going through something, right? We're not all perfect, but at the end of the day, like one of my biggest core values is like to walk in integrity with the work that I teach, because this is exactly what I practice. Yeah. And that's the space that I, teach from. And so for me, that requires me to go into my own isolation to do that work. I met an 85-year-old somatic psychotherapist, and he was like, so it ended up unfolding that like the right people came in at the right time, as always. And he came into my life, and I was like, actually, I'm going to do this. And he said, if you want to go really, really deep in, I suggest you do it in full isolation. So I entered isolation in August of 2023 without knowing the end date. So I had no idea if it was going to be 3 months. It ended up being 3 months, but as the as the pattern. I entered into isolation, and it was absolutely no input of any kind. So no social media, no Netflix, no reading, no podcasts, nothing, no phone calls if I could help it. And the only things I could do were be in my somatic therapy sessions, paint, draw, play guitar, lay on the grass. That was it.
I love that all of those things are creative energy, which is very divinely feminine and beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So literally for 3 months you played and went deep and allowed yourself to surrender to what was happening.
Yeah. I mean, I was in somatic therapy for 3 to 6 hours a day, Monday through Friday.
Wow.
So it was such a deep process, because what happens when you take away input from the psyche, right? So think about like every single time that you scroll, every single time that you are on the phone with a friend, or you're going out and doing social stuff, you're taken out of your body. So you're dissociating in some way often, because you're just not aware of like what's happening in here.
Presently, yeah.
So, and I'm not saying everyone needs to do this. I'm like pretty extreme also. So I just want to I want to presence that as well. Like in order to heal or to, come in touch with your body and your emotions, you don't have to do this. I did this because I A, wanted to consolidate it, and I B, teach this.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm an extremist, and I was like, I'm going to go all the way in, that's just how I do.
You don't do anything.
Yeah. Like we're going all the way in, break me.
I was like, I get that because I'm like, cool, just rip me open, let's go. I learned that as well. I even did my first 2 psychedelic journeys were like that. I was like, I'm open to anything.
Yeah.
By the way, don't ever say that.
Yeah. Also learned that the hard way too.
I'm just like, oh, I'm open to anything. Anything will come in.
Yeah.
And everything will come in.
Yeah.
And you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a similar situation. And the second one was in is Costa Rica. It was the one that I was telling you about.
Wow.
And that was definitely I was like, I surrender. And I came out of that, both of those just completely wiped clean. It felt like everything masculine and feminine that was like, let's just rip everything out in such a gentle way. And then I will always say this on everything that I record. The lesson that I got from Wachuma at the end of that, which was the end of 2022, December 2022, was I'm done learning from pain. I only want to learn from pleasure now. Because it was like I love that. I had come complete to that. Yeah. And I always say that to myself over and over. But so you don't have to go extreme by any means. Yeah. But caveat. This is also really beautiful. I love this. So
thank you.
You went in for like 4 to 6 hours, you said, every day?
3 to 6 hours a day. Yeah. So we would start at 8 a.m., 8 to 11-ish. We would never, because he only worked with me at the time. He was 85 and he came out of retirement to work with me. Oh. He's amazing. He's just in full service at the end of his life. And he's been doing this work for 50 years.
Wow.
And so we would be together for 8 to, usually it would wrap around 11 a.m., but there was no time for it to wrap. It was just whenever the process completed. And then I would go to lunch. And then, sometimes we would come back from 1 to maybe around 4 o'clock. So I was in it for, every day.
What was especially for people who don't know what somatic work is, what were some of the things that you did in that time? What does that look like?
Sure. So it looked okay.
It's different every time.
It's different every time. And also it wasn't like this regimented, we come in and we do somatic practices. There are somatic practices. I teach somatic practices in my program, which we can definitely get into what some of those look like. But in this specific container with him, it was somatic psychotherapy. So it was psychotherapy in the way that you would think of therapy that might look like talk therapy a little bit, because we were having to get, I did have to tell the story, right? So we would be talking about what was alive. We were going kind of into my childhood and different things that happened. And I actually didn't have a lot of memories. And so, if you dissociate as a child, if you have a lot of traumatic experiences, a lot of people are like, I don't have any memories, which also can be really challenging when people go into subconscious reprogramming, because it's when do you remember the first time feeling that? It's well, I don't fucking know, Sharon. I don't have any memories.
I don't remember. I was also really sick when I was a kid, and they put me on a lot of pain meds.
Okay.
So I have the best memory. My roommate will be like, Taylor, you remember everything to the point where it's crazy and I can't get away with anything. I'm like, no, you can't.
Oh my God, I love that.
But when someone asked me, they're like, well, what happened when you were 12 years old? I was like, I was so deep in darkness because of pain medications where I was being numbed. So the dissociative state, it's not a fun place to be. And then when you get back into it, you're like, wow, there are things there that I didn't even know happened to me.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we were uncovering that, and basically, so a lot of it did look like talking, because we were basically dredging up what was there. Somatic work, yes, there are all the practices and all the things that you can do, and we can get into that. But think of it as the foundation of primordial language, which is breath, movement, and sound. So when you think back to how we communicated as cavemen, way back in the day, it's there wasn't actually languaging, but they communicated through breath, movement, and sound. And so that's how we actually can process and release emotions through the body.
Yeah.
So we would maybe basically the way that this went would we would kind of go on an arc, and it typically would last around a week. And this is just from me being able to tell the story after I've integrated it. Looking back, this is kind of what would happen. And so basically, if you think of healing, for all of us, at any time that we have a wound, you can think of like, it's almost like a crack in the foundation, right? So if we come here, we're whole, we're perfect, we're complete. We're like a little baby that like doesn't have any of the programming yet. We're just a soul that's here, that's just like full of unconditional love, right? And think of that as like a big tree trunk. This is like how I explain it sometimes.
I love those.
Okay. So this is for all of us. We come here as like solid, whole human beings. And then something happens where, you know, the parent doesn't meet the emotional need. And again, a lot of times, not our parents' fault. They do the best that they can with what they have and what they know, but like, you know, parent doesn't meet the emotional need. We get a little bit older. The culture or society tells us we have to be a certain way. We get embarrassed because we, you know, are in our fullest expression and someone tries to dim that. All of those little things create a little notch or a little crack. So imagine that you're like hacking at the tree and it creates a splinter. Right? And so we create all these little splinters in the wholeness. And those splinters, you know, if we decide something about ourselves, and then it gets deeper. So we get these like cracks in the foundation and in the kind of like splinters of our being. And until we learn how to feel and process those splinters, like the little splinters in our soul, they'll just continue to get bigger and bigger and then like, you know, create how we show up in our life. So what somatic work does is it allows us to feel from the inside out. And as we feel from the inside out, those splinters come back into wholeness, into our being. So like, that's kind of how I explain it. And so for me, we were going splinter by splinter, peeling back a layer, right? And bringing that layer into wholeness. And so yeah, it would look like basically an arc that was like a week long, where the first 2-3 days we're just talking about like, you know, we're talking about what happened in childhood. We're talking about, and like, as you're talking, you're processing, you're remembering, more things are coming up. And then inevitably we'd hit on a wound. So we'd hit on one of those splinters and it would make me feel something in my body. And because I didn't have input, it would just cause me to like go into it and ruminate almost as that age and that version of myself.
To like almost to process and play it out as it should have been back then.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly right.
It's like rewinding a movie almost, to the point where it's like, oh, this is when my mother said something that made me feel insecure when I was a kid.
Right.
And so it's like, you go back to that, you go into that part of the movie, replay it and create a new storyline almost.
Well, you go in and feel it.
Feel it.
So when in subconscious reprogramming, they'll say, oh, go in and create a new story. But instead what somatic work says is go in and feel it, because it's still stuck in the cells of your being, right? So that little 6-year-old that felt the thing because their mom said something and then she felt shame or wrong or, you know, not enough, didn't get her needs met in some way. And children always internalize it, right? So mom had a bad day, but children always thinks I'm bad.
Yep.
The child does, right? So you go back as that 6-year-old, because that 6-year-old still exists in you, in your body. And when you let the 6-year-old feel it as the 6-year-old within you and process it out, that in and of itself can be healing. And then yes, we can create a new story and context on top of that, which is beautiful. But what the healing piece is actually allowing ourselves to feel it as that version of ourselves.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing for
3 straight months.
For 3 straight months. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And the second that you feel it, it dissipates. When you actually let yourself feel it, you don't intellectualize it. You don't intellectualize the story, but instead feel it as that version of you. And that's the distinction. Yeah.
I resonate with this because while I did not have this language for what this was, but when I was in Costa Rica, when you do Wachuma, which is masculine energy, it's like very grandfather Wachuma, right? That energy is very safe when you're in it. And Wachuma is something where, I don't know if you've ever experienced it. Oh my God, it's beautiful. I absolutely recommend it. We did it 3 different days. And on the first day, that was like, I got ripped open and I was like, anything, I'm welcome. And like, never again. The second day it was just the full day, the unraveling that happened inside of me, it was like, okay, I was Alice in Wonderland, and I was literally going down this like spiral rabbit hole, and something would come in, and it was like a thought from when I was a kid. It was like, oh, I don't know, some boy that I liked said something about me or something, and there was like the thought of what happened, and then I would feel it for a second, and like it happened so fast when I was in it, but I know it was a 12-hour experience, so it was longer than this, but I would feel it. And I'd be like, oh, cool, I want to dive deeper into this. They're like, no, you don't have to. And it would just go away. Like the visuals that were happening in my head as it was happening, it was like, no, we're unraveling this thing that your mother said to you, that this happened when you were a kid. And so it was just beautiful because I did feel all of it but it was so ingrained in the whole journey that it wasn't like that one thing when you were describing it, but it was, wow, that's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Because you're allowing it to yourself to actually feel it. And that's the thing, is that people are afraid of this work because they're often afraid, and I hear this from my students all the time, well, what if I unlock that and I start feeling and then I never get out of it? And it's actually the opposite. What you haven't felt is staying repressed in your body and your being, and it's actually coming out sideways, and it's coming out in the way that you show up, it's coming out in all of your belief systems, it's coming out in what you are creating in your life in ways that you like and don't like. Right? It's coming out in self-sabotaging patterns and behaviors, and you're trying to shame yourself to change the behavior when in reality you have to feel the thing that you haven't felt. And so people often think that like, oh, I have to, if I start feeling it, like I'm just going to be stuck in that depression forever. But once we actually feel it, emotions only last in the body like 90 seconds. And so, and then otherwise we'll stay in the rumination, and we can, right? But if you let yourself actually feel it and somatically process it through your body, you're creating space in your body and being to be actually filled with the wholeness of who you are. And it's so profound. And so, I love that you have that experience. And like once people actually allow themselves to go in it, they'll see that like, oh my God, we'd actually feel so much better on the other side of this. No, there's layers to it, right? There's going to be more things to process, but.
Well, and at the same time too, like I remember when I was younger and I knew nothing about entrepreneurship or spirituality or anything. I was just little baby Taylor, and 19-year-old that was angry at the world and the whole thing. And
feel that.
Like working hard and making sure I was, all the things of life. And I remember when I was that age and I was like, oh, I don't want to feel this thing because it feels like it just keeps coming up and I'm annoyed, right? And then you're like, oh, well, if I go into therapy or whatever it is, it's going to be all the time. And I recognize that. And it's funny because I agree with you 1000%. After I did those experiences, I came out with no stress or worry in my body for over a year.
Wow.
Like,
amazing.
Over a year. And it's like I felt it so deeply, and it was like, okay, I'm done. Like I'm done with that. And that was an incredible experience to be able to allow that out. So,
I love that. Wow, that's beautiful. And it essentially reset your body and your nervous system, right, for a new baseline. And then I'm sure more things have come up since then. And that's the thing, is like this is almost like a maintenance and like a way of being and a way of life, because we're always going to be going through different experiences and processes in our lives, and when you know how to feel and process the emotion in your body, it gives you so much power back, because then you actually have tools to like not let things completely derail you in your life. And even though that they can be challenging and all of that, you let yourself actually feel the emotion. You learn how to reparent yourself. You learn how to hold yourself. And that's been really the foundation of like everything that I've built now. It's like my nervous system, making sure my body is feeling safe and supported, supporting my inner child as her wounding and her feelings come up, being able to recognize, the different parts of me that are at play and what they need. And that's what all my programs are about now, is like that whole foundation. And only then can we start to like rewire our subconscious and our belief systems and all the things. It's like you have to be able to go into the body first. And it's changed my whole life. It's changed my whole business. It's changed how I show up and my level of confidence, my, like access to my intuition, really all of it. And so I can't recommend doing this work enough to literally everyone.
I feel like too, I went back and when I was like preparing for this, I went and looked at your Instagram too, and it's like your energy shifted quite
completely.
And I'm like, whoa, okay. So it's interesting to be able to, that's the one thing I do love about social media is if you document your journey, you can see how far you've come, and you've definitely come very far.
Thank you. I was a completely different person, and I've let it I've left it all there, but I used to live so much in my head. My energy used to be really like really high. And it was like my energy went from all up here to like here, and grounded, and my voice changed. The way I moved through the world changed. I got slower, like more grounded. It's really interesting. And I'm still on the journey of rediscovering who I am now in this season, because I used to be like really fun and really like kind of almost like an entertainer in a way, and like, you know, documenting my whole life and everything. And now I've just gotten really, it's become a lot more about the teachings, and I don't really talk about my personal life nearly as much. My business has changed quite a bit. Yeah, my energy's changed. And for a while I was like, did I lose my personality? Am I not fun anymore?
You're still fun.
Thanks, I appreciate that. But in a more grounded way. And I feel like I kind of swung the pendulum in the complete opposite direction, and now I'm kind of finding that equilibrium point, which I think is what we all do on our journey in evolution, right?
It's true.
But thank you for saying that. It's very different. Season 1 of my podcast to season 2 is like completely different.
And I got to see you when you launched the season 2 of your podcast.
You did.
I was like watching it happen, and I was like, damn. You could just feel it. You felt very excited and like grounded and excited. And I think that's a beautiful thing too, because we have these ideas about femininity and like what softening and surrendering and all these things are. And I'm like, no, it's still powerful.
Yes.
It's still grounded and giggly and like, it's all the things. It's not just the one thing.
Yeah. And I think the true feminine is being able to have access to the full range and have it be integrated and embodied, which we're all still on the journey, myself included, right? But it's not just like the soft and the surrendered and it's that, but it's also the power, and it's also the dark feminine, and it's also like the waves of all the ocean and the feeling, and can I hold myself in all of that? It's also being able to have your inner masculine come hold you in everything that you're creating. And I think and we can get into this too, like I really got into the feminine path over the last 2 years, because it kind of goes hand in hand with somatic work. And it was beautiful. And also pendulum swing in the opposite direction. Fully. I was like, should I not run a business anymore? Like, am I supposed to just be flowy? Like what? And I was like, that's not very fun. I was talking to Angie Lee about this quite a bit, because she like also went into that direction. And I'm like, no, that would make my soul like wither and die. I love what I do. I love creating value. I love creating money. I love like teaching and all of that. And being able to find the equilibrium point, and like, how does my inner masculine actually come in and hold me? How do I let myself feel, but not be like over processing all my emotions all the time? Like, it's really been a dance and a balance. And how do I maintain the softness, maintain access to my intuition? How do I let my body lead and honor her, and not operate from the way that I used to in business? And that's been an entire journey in and of itself.
I would actually love to get into that at the next episode.
So great, we will.
This is a great segue. So we can talk a little bit more about nervous system navigation. I like saying navigation because it's like as you're going through it, but we'll get into nervous system navigation, and then masculine, feminine, and feminine leadership in the next couple.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much for listening to this Wildly Satisfied production. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love it if you would share it with someone that you love, leave a review, or come tag us on social media at Wildly Satisfied.